Listening to The Rob Dibble Show.
Back on The Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell, trying to get a hold of Sean Salisbury. But in the meantime, the PAC-12 is now the PAC-4. And reading his X count, he's joking that soon it'll be the PAC-2, which is true. I mean, I feel bad for these 4 teams that are left because they have to be scrambling to try to find something and get in there. But I agree with you. I mean, what happens to the teams that don't make the Conference 4? You know, do you even start playing in your own league? Do you set up games because, you know, you're not going to qualify to get to the end of the playoff?
Well, the one thing about college football and just this whole conversation, it's all about making money for the athletic department and those universities.
Right.
And when you are not one of the Power 5, let's just go back to a 2022 world, when you're not the Power 5 and you're a Coastal Carolina, a Utah State, a Mountain West member, an AAC member, an independent like UConn, you are wheeling and dealing with other athletic directors to try to set up a schedule. And some of them, what happened?
He's calling and it disconnects.
It's
a phone issue.
We've got a phone issue. Try him on the listener line. See what happens on the listener line. See if we can get him there. All right. Sorry, Sean. We've got some engineering hurdles to jump over. But the one thing about those money games is those provided not only funding for the football program, but provided funding for across the board in athletic departments. So if those games become fewer or not even existing,
right,
then, you know, that's going to be an issue for a lot of those schools and how they're going to fund their entire programs for here on out. And that's, you know, including golf, that's including baseball. Stanford, for instance, when 2020 happened in the pandemic and they had to shut down their sports, they cut golf. Or not golf, they cut track and field. And they're looking to cut more sports. So when they're not getting a TV deal like the SEC or the Big Ten, expect that stuff to happen. That's going to continue to happen. So we'll see. We'll see how the schedules get worked out. I do think, like in Washington State's case, Washington will still schedule Washington State for football and for all other sports, even if they become a Mountain West school. But those schools that aren't in the boat of the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and perhaps the ACC are not going to be funded even close like the schools that are. What does that mean for the basketball programs?
Oh, I mean, we talk about this all the time, and you've talked about this since you joined the show, recruiting. How do you recruit to schools that aren't going to be televised nationally? How do you recruit schools that are cutting their sports programs? We just saw one of our biggest colleges around here, a D1 team, go to D3.
Yeah.
You know, because the finances and the powers that be were like, listen, we don't have the means to do this anymore. Boom, we're going to go to D3. And you know, so all the promises that are made to these athletes are going to fall through. And so if you're going to some of the you thought you were going to this one school, and then all of a sudden you're 1 year, 2 year into your stay, and then all of a sudden you start dropping sports. You go from one Division I to Division III. I mean, it blows my mind that this is where we are with the Pac-12. I still am kind of in shock that all of these teams, because when I saw USC and UCLA first make the move, I was like, man, they know something ahead of everybody else. And this was a preemptive move for them. And now you see the other teams that were like, they waited for the news to come out. And they're like, oh, my God, we're not going to make anything near what these other conferences are making. We've got to get, you know, beg, borrow, and steal our way in. Yep. And they did. And they got accepted. And so, you know, these other schools that didn't have enough to offer, like basketball and other sports to bring along with them, you're screwed. I mean, you're going to see colleges fold. You're not just going to see sports and athletics
fold. I really do.
Because the athletics keep a lot of these schools afloat with the money they bring in.
And I'm wondering about the college football playoff and how that's going to be adjusted. Because right now, and especially if we're talking about the 12-team field, right now the rules were 5 teams from the Power Fives. All those conference champions will be automatic bids, plus the others, the what do we call this? The non-five or the other five. Whoever makes it as the highest ranked team out of those conferences will get an automatic bid. Then they would go to the next 6 highest ranked teams in their coaches poll or AP poll. I don't know what poll they were using in order to fill out the rest of the bracket. Now, it's been suggested it's real easy. You just change that from 6 and 6 to 5 and 7. Now you have your 4 conference champions from the Power 4 and your 1 non-Power 4 champion as well. Then you go through your next 7 top-ranked teams. Okay, that's all good and well, but I'll bet those 7 teams are going to be from the Power 4. I will bet that that's the way it all shakes out. Those teams are going to make significantly more money that they can spend on buildings, uniforms, everything that revolves around recruiting. And I don't know how NIL would work into it all, but I am sure there's going to be more NIL dollars put forth to those universities because of their situation where they are.
If I can advertise with Alabama or Clemson or somebody like that, USC, UC, I'm going there before I go. When am I going to go to the PAC-4?
And let's just say there's
nobody's watching that.
Some real popular kid at Alabama A&M. And, like, he's got a lot of followers and whatnot. Like, that's great and all, but you're still not on the television like the kid from the backup at Alabama is. So I just think that these schools are going to be elevated in a way that it's such haves and have-nots that I feel for teams like Washington State.
That we've never seen before.
Right.
I don't think in our lifetime we've seen something this drastic.
There's always been a gap.
Yes.
Like, go to any state.
Yeah, absolutely.
CCSU, UConn. Look at that one. There's a gap in funding there. There's a gap in interest there. Of course there is. And people around here understand that. Now, and I guess that's a bad example because neither of those teams are on this, this boat. Take Syracuse and Albany College. There's a gap. When Syracuse is on the ACC boat, that gap is going to widen even further. And like you're saying, what do these schools do for athletics after that if they're not keeping up with those kinds of Joneses? They're not going to get the same 5-star athletes, not at all.
No.
And if that's the case, they're going to be such a watered-down product to what they once were. Even the U-Hearts. The reason U-Heart got into D1 was the college men's basketball tournament. They got there. They cashed that check. Okay, mission accomplished. Let's move on to the D3 stuff. And now when they did that.
Mind-blowing, by the way.
When they did that, if that is not an option anymore, and maybe like you're saying with UCLA, USC, maybe somebody at U-Heart knew the future, knows a little something we don't. If that March Madness becomes only Power 4 teams and only the haves, the have-nots are going to have no reason to participate.
Right.
No reason to participate. So I do think that athletic departments all over the country will feel a ripple effect to whatever shakes out in the next couple of weeks. And really, I don't think this is done. I think ACC is going to do something. I don't know if Florida State or Miami or Clemson are going to make moves out of that conference. But still, I think it's very cloudy of what 2025 is going to look like. Even next year in 2024 fall, what that 24-25 student-athlete seasons are going to look like.
All right, we'll get back to some baseball and some football next. First dibs question of the day. Sean's already said he'll join us next week. We'll try to figure out the phone situation as we move forward. But it's the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive. Kurt Kaplan on the ones and twos. John Ashmead on the video. We'll be right back.